This week on Pulse, Elon is back with surgical robots. Yeah, right. Scientists are shrinking robots to microscopic levels. Your blood tests are coming home, and ChatGPT wants to be your healthcare coordinator. And another prestigious award, ding, 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 goes to an Australian digital health startup. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Pulse, your podcast delving into all things health, innovation, digital and data, proudly brought to you by Pulse IT News. This is our Hot Topics show, and I'm your host, Louise Schaefer.
And I'm your other host, George Margellis.
George, did you just fly in from Hong Kong?
Literally. So I literally got in yesterday after a couple of days in Hong Kong. It's been a pretty hectic couple of weeks. I've been to Canberra, I've been to Hong Kong, I've been to digital summits online overnight. It's been a busy time.
Oh, yeah. How was that? Because I was in Bali, so I must admit I didn't dial in for that one.
The Global Health Connected Digital Summit was quite good. It started at about 9 o'clock in the night and went through to about 2 a.m. It's still a buzz attending an international conference in your pajamas with a cup of coffee, sitting in your office.
Coffee, not red wine.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The event in Hong Kong was also quite interesting. The Geron Technology and Innovation Expo cum Summit. Our Asian colleagues are taking this aging population issue much more seriously than we are. And they actually had this huge expo with lots of technology. They also invited the general public in. So there were literally thousands of elderly Hong Kong citizens roaming through these halls using technology. And it was a great way of actually seeing what was interesting and what wasn't. So you would see lines up of people doing these mind games on computers or these exercise cycles. And the other interesting thing was they had a whole section dedicated to what they call care food. So this is food designed for people with eating difficulties, with dysphagia due to swallowing problems. And they actually had the food cooking there. So I actually got to try a dysphagia-friendly yum cha session. So I got to eat yum cha with a number of locals designed for people who can't swallow. The fact that they're designing this food so that people with eating difficulties can enjoy yum cha with the rest of their family in a normal way, I think that in itself said a lot for the way they're focusing on providing value to their society.
So important. I mean, because no one wants to sit around eating mush.
Absolutely.
Which is what often happens.
Well, we've all seen those pictures of, plates of food delivered to aged care providers here where there's some green mush and some brown mush and some yellow mush. We're not quite sure what it is. One thing you notice when you go to Hong Kong and other countries like that, communal eating is a core part of their culture. And by having these sort of things, they could actually have everyone sitting around the table like it was a normal day. So, grandma at 95 would be having her dysphagia-friendly yum cha and the rest of the family. And the noise when you go to a Hong Kong yum cha is amazing. Everyone's talking. It's a real buzz.
Yeah. Oh, that's so respectful, as it should be. That's cool. And did you see any tech that really blew your mind?
Look, there was quite a few humanoid robots floating around. I actually did see one fall over, which gave me a bit of a giggle. Lots of tech for improving brain health with gaming type technology. They seem to really like that sort of thing. But a lot of things that promoted exercising and physical activity. Take my hat off. Austrade and New South Wales Investment had quite a big booth there, and they demonstrated some great Australian technology, ranging from digital gadgets to one of my favorites, which is an Australian design flooring, which decreases the risk of fractures. So it's basically uses this specialized foam on top of normal flooring, a company called Cradle based here in Sydney that basically goes to first principles, not this help us solve the problems after the fracture. How do you avoid the fracture? So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, our good friends from Australian Nursing Home Foundation, a local aged care provider here in Sydney, have been doing a lot of work on dementia-friendly, culturally aware devices, and they were demonstrating there. So some really good stuff. But I have to admit, the main buzz this week was I actually flew back from Hong Kong early to get back in time for my granddaughter Evie's first birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Evie.
That was yesterday afternoon. That was lots of fun. There were lots of little kids running around in balloons and Evie having a time of her life. That was fun. Her cousins were there and lots of their friends. So there was a room of, I think, 20 kids under the age of 5.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Let's just say we needed a stiff drink and a strong cup of coffee when we got home.
Oh, and isn't she so lucky? She's going to grow up with all those cousins, and there'll be more. Yeah,
absolutely. They're coming along. And yourself, you've had a pretty fun couple of weeks, I understand.
I have had a full-on couple of weeks. My house is a mess because I was in Canberra, and from Canberra I was home for, I think, one night and then was overseas again. And literally 2.5 hours later, after I flew in from overseas, I had an online meeting, but then I had 3 days, including the weekend, of board meetings. Anyway, and then yesterday, to be honest, I was too buggered to clean properly. So I did the laundry, George. I haven't put my clothes away, but the laundry is at least done. Yeah, so we had Canberra, which I saw you there. So we had the Connecting Care demonstrator event, which was a huge success. We actually had 2 patient stories that were part of this demonstrator event. And we basically took the people who attended through their patient journey. So, there'd be, I'm ringing Health Direct. Oh, then an ambulance is coming, and then there's the hospital stay, and then it's discharged to your GP, that sort of thing. And we had clinicians from the digital health community actually present what's happening on the screen, and it was all to show their information flowed through and in real time. So a lot of this was to demonstrate what is possible. It's not all possible right now, but it will be possible soon, thanks to the work that industry is doing, collaborating with government and under government leadership. So yeah, that was put on by the Department of Health with support from the Digital Health Agency, CSIRO and Sparked, and of course industry. And it was a fabulous time, full on, because there was a huge amount of planning to get that happening. And it was just a privilege to be part of it.
Oh, that's great. It was a good event. It is important that we actually demonstrate these patient journeys that we're considering optimizing with digital health. The challenge is always, of course, doing it in real life versus doing it in a conference room. But yeah, you have to start somewhere.
We've got to give people something to aspire and look forward to that also aren't technical. So you shouldn't need to be behind the scenes working on these data standards or making the tech interoperate, utilizing those standards. But you should be able to understand, thanks to the work that all those wonderful people are doing, this is the future experience for clinicians and for patients that is possible, which is really cool.
Kudos to the team. And I know you put a lot of effort into making that a successful event, and it was a great success.
Yeah, no, it was fun. All right, George, we have some really cool hot topics today. So shall we get into them?
Let's jump into it.
All right, George, well, let's start with one of our favourite pastimes, calling BS against Silicon Valley people who have no idea about healthcare. And today we're going to have to fact check Elon Musk. So at a recent event, Musk claimed that Tesla's Optimus humanoid robot will eventually have superhuman surgical skills and that he'll make the best surgeon available to everyone on Earth. Wow, what a great guy. Thanks so much, Elon. Now, to be fair, surgical robots is a serious field. We've had robots like Da Vinci for years, and on a recent episode of Pulse, we discussed Remedy Robotics doing remote surgery. But these tools are under tight human control that augment human capability, not autonomous surgeons making clinical decisions. What Musk is talking about would mean a general-purpose humanoid robot performing complex surgery autonomously or semi-autonomously in one of the most regulated safety-critical domains we have. That's not just an engineering problem. It's regulation, liability, consent, cybersecurity, training, clinical governance, and of course, who do you sue when Optimus nicks the aorta? So Elon, please, if you're listening, can you just build me an Optimus that'll be able to do my laundry, cook my dinner, clean my apartment? Oh, and if you could put the clothes away that I mentioned earlier that are all over my bed at the moment, that'd be helpful. So look, if you could get that happening before we attempt surgery, please, I think that would be a good thing. George, what is there to say in this?
So first of all, I have to disclose my biases. I do not drive Tesla. They are nice cars. I have nothing against them. I probably just can't afford one, to be honest. But I am a big SpaceX fan. I do love watching Elon's rockets go into space, and I try and watch those sort of things. And I have to admit, I was a pretty big Elon fan before he got as politically involved as he has in the past. And realistically, you really can't discount the richest man in the world too lightly.
No, because he has power to get shit done, whether you like it or not.
And didn't he just recently submit for a $1 trillion paycheck from Tesla? So, I mean,
which was approved.
He does have some capacity, and he's a pretty good showman. He's done a pretty good job in promoting technology. But shifting to the real world, surgery is really hard. I mean, I highly respect my surgical colleagues. Yeah, my degree is an MBBS. The BS stands for Bachelor of Surgery. But I have absolutely no scalpel wielding skills. And whilst we do hear a lot about surgical robots today, as you pointed out, these aren't autonomous robots. These are totally under the control of a human operator, and they're used to augment their capabilities, not replace them. And they do that really well. However, if you actually dig into the evidence about robotic surgery, it's not as flash as sometimes it's made out to be. They've been shown to be as good in outcomes as most conventional surgery. So they don't necessarily have a significant advantage or disadvantage, but they actually do cost more because the disposable stuff that you use in robotic surgery is actually quite expensive. They've been shown to actually increase operation times. Some of my colleagues argue that they're more a marketing thing than a clinical thing. They don't actually make a huge difference in most surgeries, and in some cases, they have worse outcomes. And whilst we have seen some examples of telesurgery where the surgeon's sitting on the other side of the country or even on the other side of the world, it really is quite questionable whether they actually have any scalability in doing that. It makes a good TV news story, but it doesn't actually change the dynamics of healthcare in a triple way. And to extrapolate to superhuman precision is a stretch. It really is hard stuff.
Yeah, and autonomous. It's like, what?
And the thing is, of course, even if you are doing surgery, and maybe 90% of it is quite standard, opening an incision, closing an incision, they seem fairly straightforward. But once you open up an abdominal cavity and look into it, it isn't like the textbook. It doesn't look like that Gray's Anatomy's book. Aorta is exactly here and the renal artery is exactly there. The human body is really quite unique, and you really have to think on the fly. I mean, things change dynamically. You touched on things like cutting vessels. Well, that happens just purely because that vessel is surrounded by abdominal fat or is attached to some fascia. So it's really quite complex.
Well, there's internal bleeding when you can't see.
And there's all these sort of things happening. I think we need to sort of put it in context. Now, some things can be standardized. We've seen some interesting work happening around incision closures. You can use a robot to do that fairly easily if you could identify that it's a nice straight suture line that needs to be done. Orthopods use it for things like where they drill a hole for joint replacements to make sure it's accurate. But again, it's under the control and under the auspices of a human. And another thing we need to think about as well is that, and we've discussed this in the context of AI, if we hand all these things over to an autonomous robot or an autonomous AI, the people who normally do it, they're skilled. We saw the article which came out that showed people who use AI in colonoscopy are shown to have a decreased capacity for identifying polyps. So what do we do? What happens when robots all become too busy when they're trying to take over the world that they don't want to do any menial surgery, and the poor de-skilled surgeon has to jump in and fill the void. So
There's an angle I hadn't considered, George.
We need to always be ready for that alternative. When the robots decide that they want to take over, we have to be able to go back to stage one and do things ourselves.
Yeah. Well, thank you, George, for those insights. And yes, I think that superhuman surgical skills may make for a great headline, and maybe some investors might believe it. But I think the real future of surgery, as you've said, is collaborative. It's not competitive.
Yeah, he should probably just focus on getting to Mars and see how we can pull that one off first, and then come back with the super surgical robots.
Yeah. And you've got to get to Mars, and you've got to make the air breathable, and I think you need the Wayland Corporation for that.
And I guess if you volunteer to go to Mars, you may volunteer to be operated on by a superhuman surgeon. So
yes. Our next story, which is about robots that actually are real and are making meaningful progress, just at a scale that we'd need a microscope to see. So researchers are developing micro-robots and nanorobots that can navigate the human body. They're purpose-built devices that can be guided through blood vessels, tissues, or other biological environments. Recent developments published in Nature show genuine promise for targeted drug delivery and minimally invasive procedures at the cellular level. So we're talking about devices that could potentially carry drug payloads directly to a tumour, perform biopsies at microscopic scale, or clear blockages in ways we've never been able to before. So what I love about this story is it's the complete opposite of Elon's announcement. This is scientists making careful, incremental progress on genuinely revolutionary technology. So yes, maybe less flashy, but way more substance. And critically, they're honest about timelines. So as Nature pointed out, we're talking 10 to 20 years for clinical use, not, next year, but really exciting the possibilities here, George.
Look, going from human-sized life-like robots to nanobots the size of a grain of sand is pretty cool. And it actually brings us back into the real world. I respect an article published in Nature more than something that's in Elon Musk's Q3 earnings call. So the need to make sure we read the right stuff and not get too excited by some of the hype that's out there. Look, it makes great clinical sense. I mean, we know that one of the challenges we face in pharmacology nowadays is that when we deliver drugs to people, we want it to target certain organs where there is disease or there is an issue. But the reality is the way we take drugs, you take a tablet, inject something into a vein, it goes everywhere and it has effects on other parts of the body. And chemotherapy is one of those great examples. We know that the side effects of chemotherapy on healthy tissue has to be weighed against the value of that chemotherapy against tissue that's diseased. And how we do that has been an ongoing challenge. So the ability to target drugs more effectively using nanobots is a really great thing. Now, let's keep in mind, these nanobots don't have arms and legs and aren't actuated. They are literally pieces of iron with some special chemical compounds added to them to enable them to do things. Now, if Elon used his $1 trillion paycheck to support these guys, hey, I think that would probably be a much better use of his.
Yeah, we could probably speed up the 10, 20 years.
Yeah, it's exciting. It shows the need for collaboration. It also shows the need for basic science understanding, because I do remember doing physics at high school and studying magnetic fields and thinking, when the hell am I ever going to use magnetic fields again? But hey, in this example, they're using magnetic fields to direct these things.
That's what I thought was really fascinating. And Trump has said, no one understands how magnets work. There's this whole thing, you can find it online. It's I think we do understand how magnets work. But yeah, it's a magnetic guidance system for navigating.
Physics, chemistry, pharmacology, physiology, anatomy. It's really a demonstration of why science is so important for us to think about using it in combination of the various fields to do things that make a big difference.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, George. Well, from the microscopic to the practical, let's talk about at-home blood testing, because this is one of those innovations that's genuinely making healthcare more accessible. Friend of the pod, Dr. Bertolin Mesko, everyone would know him as the medical futurist, he did a recent review of multiple companies that are now offering at-home blood sampling devices. Now, before Pulse Potties think of it, no, this isn't Theranos 2.0. These are legitimate devices using proven collection methods that have all been validated. They're not available in Australia yet, but they are available in other jurisdictions. So how it works is that you use the device at home to collect capillary blood yourself, often from the upper arm or fingertip, using a small, mostly painless device. And it uses button-activated vacuum systems or microneedle arrays. Mail it off to a certified lab for analysis, or for the trial if you're part of a clinical trial, and they can use it for remote monitoring. So blood samples at home, fabulous for people in clinical trials, or indeed anyone who needs to get tests done regularly. It's a really interesting innovation in not just, I think, testing technology, but in a business model that makes collection easier and more accessible. So thanks, Bertolin, for doing this review. What did you think of this, George?
Look, I have to start off saying I do love Bertolin Mesko's writing. He publishes regularly on LinkedIn. He actually gives detailed articles. If memory serves you correct, you brought him out here a few years back, didn't you, for HIC?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I met him at Stanford years before he was famous. He was just starting to become famous, and he came to Australia.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I remember meeting him at one of the HIC events, and he surprised me. He was a lot younger than I expected him to be, considering the quality of his writing. If people want something to refer to, I highly recommend some of his books, because I found them to quite be useful. Now, taking blood is part and parcel of the way medicine's delivered today, and anything that makes it easier has to be a good thing. And the various technology he describes are quite impressive. But, I still remember back in my day when I was a junior medical officer, doing ward rounds and having to take blood from patients in the wards. And it can be a pretty complex thing to do. It's not easy. So if these technologies can do that effectively, it's great. I do worry that if these technologies replace all the easy blood draws, and now some patients are a lot easier to get blood from than others, that leaves the really hard ones for the poor humans who have to spend 15 jabs. And I don't know if you've ever had the experience of having a young junior medical officer stick needles in your arm, but it's not a fun thing. But there are some questions we need to ask. Are we taking the right blood? I mean, often we need a venous blood sample to be able to get enough blood to be able to do things like a blood
capillary,
culture.
isn't it? These technologies.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we need an arterial blood sample to do things like blood oxygens. And then The other thing that got me was we take this blood sample and we stick it in an envelope, and then we have to stick it in a mailbox. Question number one, do you know where your nearest mailbox is, Louise?
I do actually, but I live in a city, so it's easier for me. There's one every few blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, so look, we did find one hidden behind the bus stop, like, about 200 meters away. So they are available, but it's not something we're quite used to using as quite often as we normally do. And then I sort of worry that if I do throw this into the mailbox at 8 o'clock in the morning and the collector comes at 6 p.m., my blood sitting in an envelope in a metal box for 8 or 9 hours may have some effect on the chemistry. So there are those sort of issues that we need to think about. When you look at how blood's taken in a pathology lab, there is a significant supply chain issue around making sure it gets to the right place. You've probably seen those little cars running around with urgent blood supplies in the back. 99% of them are not taking blood to the blood bank. They're taking blood specimens to the lab. The other issue is that you need to think about why you're taking blood at home. Now, so someone's on warfarin and need to have their INR assessed regularly to make sure they're on the right dose, it makes a lot of sense. And there are actually devices where they actually can do their INR checks at home. However, just doing blood tests because you can without having a clinical context to it, my worry is that sometimes people will start collecting blood and doing regular tests and become very anxious about the results and become overly focused on it. So we need to make sure that we're taking blood for the right reason, not just to track things that don't make a difference. And we've had discussions about some of these longevity startups which promote some of these concepts. So we need to make sure that we're doing it for the right reason. But for the right people, for the right tests, I think this is a real positive, but we just need to tick off on the validity and accuracy of the process.
For the pathologists listening, interesting business model idea as well. Rather than having a startup do this, there's a potential here for pathology companies to be the Netflix and not the Blockbuster and disrupt themselves. This is a potential growth opportunity as well, now that we have technology where you can do these samples yourself.
The value of a pathology lab is in the testing of the blood sample, not the taking of the blood necessarily. So they need to think about how they integrate these sort of things into their system. And to any pathology labs who does this, Louise and I are quite willing to take a commission on this recommendation.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, George. All right, everyone. It is time for a quick break. We will be back with more hot topics in a moment. George, it was only on our last Hot Topics show, yes, our last one, that we talked about ChatGPT having its medical wings clipped. But I've just got whiplash here because now news reports are surfacing of OpenAI exploring consumer health products like a personal health assistant and a health data aggregator. Essentially, another shot at the personal health record problem that, of course, Google, Amazon and Microsoft all failed to crack. They've hired health tech talent Doximity co-founder Nate Gross to lead this push. Investors are openly saying they think OpenAI might finally solve the personal health record because they sit on the AI layer rather than the hospital IT layer. So what do you think the play is here, George? It's almost impossible to keep up.
So I have to say this story did give me a little bit of PTSD. I'm a big fan of personal health records. My very first HIC presentation, I think it was back in 2005, was specifically around the personal health record as a disruptive technology. And we talked about how the personal health record enabled people to do things like use their information more effectively. It's a bit scary that 20 years later, it still hasn't had that effect. So maybe I'm as bad a predictor as Elon Musk when it comes to the future.
It was just a lot harder than people thought.
Well, this is what it comes down to. And the question is, should it have been that hard? And we can discuss that ad infinitum. The other thing that awoke my PTSD was, of course, the big claim by yet another tech company to revolutionize medicine. You know, we've been hearing that one for a little while. And I even joined a big tech company a while ago and drank the Kool-Aid and supported the story, but then realized how disappointing often the outcomes is because, as you pointed out, understanding healthcare is much more complex than understanding how video supply chain works or how you can deliver books across the country or how you can even do complex searches. We have discussed often the value of AI for the patient. Yeah, we've had our great friend ePatient Dave on board, and we've had a number of others. Cheryl Beast with her book, Dr. Bot. There's some real opportunities here for AI to enable patients to play a role. And I do love a particular quote by ePatient Dave that we need to make sure we compare the use of these sort of systems with the real healthcare system, not the idealized one where a charming patient doctor is available at your call to answer any questions. So AI-powered health assistant. it sounds like a good thing. It's having something which proactively reminds you to do the right thing, slaps you on the virtual wrist when you do the wrong thing, makes you chicken soup when you're sick, or at least gives you the recipe for chicken soup when you're sick.
Well, that's what Optimus can do. We'll add that to the wish list.
This idea of having something which uses your data to make personalized health decisions, to help you make better health decisions is great. However, giving all your data to Sam Altman and OpenAI does have me a little concerned. Having all your health data integrated into the LLM and then utilized by whatever seems fit makes me a little bit nervous. Yeah? So I think we need to explore that concept and take into account the various privacy and security issues associated with that, let alone the issue around technology oligarchs controlling so many things, including our health. So I have my concerns about who's doing it. I think the concept of it being done is a good thing. I think there's real opportunities for us to leverage that. Maybe we can solve the problem, but at this stage, I'm not quite sure I'd be willing to have a company like OpenAI, which, interesting, despite the word open is becoming more and more closed as we go forward. So,
yes, well, they've sought the legal changes to their business models.
The concept's interesting. The delivery model's probably flawed, taking us back to our first story. Whenever I hear these overly hyped promises about the revolutionizing, my PTSD comes in and I start to shiver and shake and worry about it all happening. But at some stage, I guess we'll start seeing some progress, and it may well come from smaller startups rather than the big guys. So I think we just need to keep our eyes open for it.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, we're living in very interesting times. The New York Times are writing a lot more about health and technology these days because of the consumer interest. And they had a popular piece last week on patients turning to chatbots for health advice, which we've discussed numerous times on the pod. E-patient Dave was quoted in that, and he said that chatbots should be compared with the healthcare system as it is, not some unrealistic ideal. He said the really relevant question is it better than having nowhere else to turn? And so that's where I think when healthcare is inaccessible for reasons like the cost, of course, literacy, we talked about with Bhavesh in the last episode with his AI avatar, is accessibility when you need it. It's unrealistic to think that when I'm at 1 a.m. waking up stressed, I'm nursing the baby or whatever, and I finally got a bit of quiet time because at least the rest of the house is quiet. That's when I want answers to questions. It makes sense that people turn to these tools. And so I guess I'm less concerned about privacy because I don't think a lot of people care about that anymore. I mean, there was a survey done recently in the States of young people, like primary school and high school people, who have a chatbot friend, and that was the language they use. 7% of them, like, they just talk to it all the time. So I don't know. I think privacy is an antiquated concept that I don't know whether future generations, I think by the time they realize maybe they should rethink these things, I don't think it's going to be relevant for them anymore. But also, if you are actually in a vulnerable situation and unwell, privacy is not top of, if something, a tool, if it's whether it's a government provided tool, a private company tool, if it provides something that gives you peace of mind or is available when you need it and has at least a degree of accuracy, because if humans aren't 100%, I can see people jumping on this. And so OpenAI might make a strong case, more so because of their integration so quickly into people's lives.
And the onus is then, of course, on those systems to ensure accuracy. There was an interesting article, some of the medical literature published this week. I've spoken about the AI tool Open Evidence, which is a clinically based LLM which uses reviewed journal information to support its decision-making. And they highlighted that its accuracy is quite amazing. However, one doctor in America was testing it and asked it a very specific question about a very specific antibiotic in a patient with dialysis. And most antibiotics, when they're used in patients with dialysis, the dosage needs to be controlled because of the fact that renal function is decreased, and renal function is what flushes out the byproducts of the antibiotics and blah, blah, blah. This is quite a technical thing. But there's one specific antibiotic which fits into the same class of drugs as most other antibiotics, but which is metabolized by the liver, not by the kidney. So the question was, do I need to change the dose of this drug in a patient with dialysis. And open evidence, which is the nirvana of medical LLM models, said yes, because the antibiotics metabolized by the kidney and you need to change the dose. Now, in this actual fact, you didn't need to change the dose because this particular antibiotic doesn't get affected by the kidney. So the advice was wrong. And what they highlighted was this wasn't a hallucination. This was an extrapolation of core knowledge being incorrectly applied. Now, in reality, probably most doctors would have made the same mistake. So you can't necessarily say that open evidence is bad, because if someone had asked me, I probably would have given exactly the same answer as open evidence. But if people are making decisions based on this information, we need to make sure they're accurate. The other issue, of course, that's been raised a number of times is that we've seen chatbots used in mental health where the advice is not necessarily good advice. And the frightening thing you talk about, 70% of kids having a chatbot friend as their best friend or a good friend and taking advice from it. We've seen how these chatbots can be manipulated to tell you what you want to hear. And if what you want to hear is self-harm is the right way forward, then they may well support that. So I worry about a society where your best friend is a chatbot. Back in the good old days, my best friend was the guy who lived across the road who had a soccer ball we could play with. So it's concerning. But like you said, at 3:00 in the morning, I'm much more likely to open up a chatbot and ask a question, because Maureen will get very upset if I hit her in the ribs and ask her the same question at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see. Now, I saw Open Evidence was being interviewed by Hayley Tecco, and she was making a case, well, shouldn't you make open evidence available to everybody? Like basically to patients. And so the patient advocacy community is really all over that. So it'll be interesting to see if there'll be pressure applied for them to be able to justify making that a tool, because it is a higher quality source of medical information available to patients.
I guess it's the business model. I mean, open evidence has now also become a unicorn. And I have to admit, I haven't quite worked out how they make any money. But then again, one of the experiences I've had is that unicorns don't have to make money. They just have to look like they're making money.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, God. Now, George, before we wrap, I really want to highlight some fantastic Australian innovation because, we love celebrating homegrown success here on Pulse. And we've got another story in this vein, and a nice one, Pulse IT, for covering it. Now, Rahma Health, a Melbourne-based digital health startup, has just won not one, not two, but 3 national titles at Telstra's Best of Business Awards, including Champion Health, Accelerating Women, and the Overall Business of the Year for 2025. For those of you who aren't from Australia, Telstra's Business Awards have been running for, actually, I don't even know how long, but as long as I can remember. And it's a really prestigious, highly recognised award. It's got nothing to do with health. It's a business-focused award. So they have state qualifiers, and then the best in the states go to the national award. So the fact that Rahma Health has got there is fantastic news. If you haven't come across Rahma Health yet, they're tackling a really specific but incredibly important problem, helping the global Arabic-speaking community navigate healthcare and providing evidence-based resources. Their platform creates resources in both Arabic and English that have been used 3 million times worldwide, from families in refugee camps in Jordan, Syrian families in Turkey, women in rural Yemen, alongside communities in metropolitan Melbourne. And George, what strikes me about this win is it's not just the flashiest tech or the biggest market, but it's really about identifying a genuine gap in healthcare equity and building something practical to address it. And the fact that it won the People's Choice Award as well, just like your story earlier in the episode, George, where you were saying there was a line of consumers for specific technologies at the Geron Technology Conference, it really shows you what they're interested in. And the people have spoken and they love Rahma Health. What do you think about this one, George?
I haven't met the people at Rahma, but I was very impressed with their solution, and I have to take my hat off to them for developing such an innovative solution targeted at the cold community. As you know, my background's from a cold community. I'm actually on the board of an organization called Multicultural Care, which focuses on delivering aged care to the cold community. And this group is underserved. The reality is it's really easy to find information, well, not easy, but it's possible to find information in English, but to find things that are in Arabic, that are written in such a way which is relevant to the people who need them is hard. And the beauty of this is they're not just using it here in Australia, but they're making it available around the world. So I take my hat off to Rahma and the team. And if you look at the photos there, it's a multicultural community who developed it. The people who came out here as migrants and are benefiting us here in Australia through their knowledge and skill, but also benefiting their friends and family around the world I think is a great thing. Kudos to Telstra for identifying organizations like this and supporting them. These are breakthrough stories where we can do innovation here in Australia in such a way that it'll benefit us here, but there's only 25 million of us. But there are over 1 billion Arabic-speaking people around the world who will also benefit from these solutions. There's also 1 billion in India who don't speak English well. There are people around the world who don't understand the different languages, but also understanding the cultural sensitivities associated with them. So I think this is great. I was really excited to see this. Kudos for Pulse IT for publishing the story, because getting these sort of Australian good news stories out and demonstrating that you don't need to invest $100 million in an LLM to develop a solution. You can just basically take things that are out there and make them available to people who need them. And that in itself provides huge value for us all.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And wonderful to celebrate. And I think it's a really interesting contrast from our stories regarding Tesla's Optimus and OpenAI and their approach. This Australian innovation, it's about enabling other people, removing barriers, creating access. And I'm wondering whether that's a particularly Australian approach to innovation. So, less about domination, but more about participation.
Absolutely. Now, if you take this technology and plug it into an Optimus robot and make it available as a super surgical skill set as well, just think what the world would be like, Louise,
Oh my God, George, your business acumen there.
As long as those robots aren't planning to take over the world in the process, that's always, keep your eye on them. If you see them knocking on the White House and they're trying to take Donald Trump's seat, then we start worrying.
That's right. All right. Well, that's a wrap on our hot topics today, George.
Yeah, there's been some really interesting stories. It's been a great fun talking to you about them, Louise, and hopefully our listeners will feed back on their thoughts. This is something we need to keep on discussing.
Absolutely. Because you were just saying making sure the robots don't rise up and kill us all. I started reading a book on the weekend called If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies: The Case Against Superhuman AI. Eliza Yudkowsky and Nate Swords wrote it. And I was only a few chapters in. I'm not sure whether I'm going to finish it because it's very repetitive and a bit technical. But yeah, the headline says it all. Like, they're concerned that superhuman intelligence will be motivated to destroy humans.
One thing I've often found, one of the challenges reading some of these technology books in that they tend to stretch out across 300 pages, what can often be said in 10. But if you take that book and put it into ChatGPT and ask it for a summary, will it give you an unbiased summary, or will it defend itself in its way it summarizes the book? We should give that a try.
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, I could do that right now. Let me ask.
You're reading that book. It actually came across my desktop recently as well. I was looking into reading it. The other book I've just started reading is called Careless People. It's actually written by a New Zealander who worked for an unnamed large social media company run by a guy whose surname starts with a Z. And the culture inside that organization and how dystopian that culture is. Whilst I worry about AI, you have to also worry about humans. The subtitle of the book is Careless People, a cautionary tale of power, greed, and lost idealism.
Yeah, I got through that one really quick. That was stunningly bad.
Yeah, it is scary. So maybe the AI is more empathic than we are and nicer than humans. Maybe humans are the problem.
Let me see. I'm just asking ChatGPT to give me a high-level summary of the book. If anyone builds it, everyone dies. It's thinking about its response. Still thinking. Wow, why is it thinking so long?
No, it's now reporting you to Elon Musk saying this person is worried about AI.
I know. I'm in trouble now. Shit.
Sam Altman's going to come after you, sort of saying, this person's if Optimus robots knocks on your door and offers you some super surgical skills, say no.
I don't know. I'm in trouble. That's why I always say please. Anyway, well, while it's doing that, there was a call out I wanted to give, which Pulse Potties will be interested in Australia. So the Therapeutic Goods Administration is currently seeking feedback on digital mental health tools. So on the 20th of November, the TGA opened a regulatory consultation around software-based medical devices with a particular focus on digital mental health tools. There is a survey, so I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And It closes on the 1st of December. So if you're working with or within a digital health startup, or you're in the mental health space specifically, I think you're going to want to put a submission into this one.
I think that's very important work. I remember our good old friend Gavin Andrews from University of New South Wales was one of the very first people out there talking about digital tools for mental health. So I think, again, Australia's led the world in this space, and it's an opportunity to make a big difference. Meanwhile, AI is worrying about Louise and has now reported her to every large AI company.
I'm a bit stressed. Why has it not given me an answer? I'm in big trouble. Oh, wow.
Look, as long as the answer doesn't come back as yes.
Oh, God, that would be a fun summary.
And I know where you live.
I know. Oh, look, okay. It's finally given me an answer. What does it say? The authors argue that the development of a superhuman general-purpose artificial intelligence poses an existential threat to humanity. The title conveys their central claim, which is, yes, if anyone succeeds in building such an AI, the likely outcome is human extinction. Let's see. It's important for policymakers, technologists, ethicists, and the public because it functions as a wake-up call, not merely we should regulate AI, but maybe we need to pause or radically rethink the path to superintelligence. And there are some people who don't think superintelligence is ever going to happen. And then there are people like Sam Altman investing or having other people's money invest billions of dollars into making it happen quickly. So, yes, interesting stuff. All right. Well, any other recommendations, George, for the Pulse Poddies out there?
Other to not answer the door to Optimus if it knocks on your door after you've done what you've just done. No. Keep yourself educated across the field because there's a lot happening in this space. And the best way to stay educated is to listen to Pulse Pod.
What a great closing statement there, George. Thank you for the plug. If you could please read us out.
Pulse is produced by Ivan Jurek of Octopod Productions. Thanks to Emily Mara for her support. Big thanks to everyone for listening. Make sure you subscribe, follow, and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, you can visit pulseit.news to sign up for the e-newsletter and explore Pulse IT's massive digital archive. Send any feedback or topic suggestions to pulsepod@pulseit.news. We'd love to hear what's on your mind. Thanks, everyone.